Okay, so let's say you're an airline
Mm-hmm.
and you've got like hundreds of web pages
Okay.
just filled with all these policy questions.
Right, right.
The kind of stuff that customers are always asking about.
Yeah, for sure.
And you want to find a way to make all of that information like instantly accessible to those customers.
Yeah.
Well, that's where this idea of a retrieval augmented generation solution,
Okay.
or what they call REG for short,
Got it.
that's where that comes in.
Makes sense.
And today we're diving into Amazon SageMaker Unified Studio.
Okay.
We're using their user guide, kind of like our roadmap.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like we've got this cheat sheet to unlock all the potential of this platform.
I like that. Unlock the potential.
Right.
Yeah.
So
What I find really fascinating about SageMaker Unified Studio
yeah,
is that it gives you like all the tools you need to build this kind of solution
I'm
in
done.
one place. Like you can go from,
yeah,
dealing with all that messy website data all the way to having like a smooth chatbot experience, and you don't have to jump between different platforms.
that sounds super promising.
Right.
Especially for a company like an airline,
Yeah.
where they need to be, agile and responsive
Fair.
to all these customer inquiries.
Yeah.
So let's break this down a little bit.
Okay.
We've got like this mountain of policy information.
Right.
It's scattered all over the airline's website.
It's everywhere.
Where do we even start with something like that?
Well, the user guide,
Yeah.
it highlights this thing called a web crawler data source,
Okay.
which is specifically made for pulling information from websites.
Okay.
But it's not just like blindly copying and pasting everything. You can actually tell it, like follow specific links,
Uh-huh.
respect those rules that tell, search engines
Oh, wait.
to avoid like
Right.
the robots.txt stuff.
Right.
And even filter it to only grab the content you actually need.
So it's kind of like a smart spider
Exactly.
that knows what to grab and what to leave behind,
Exactly.
which is, that's got to be way more efficient
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
than someone manually going through all those pages.
Oh, 100%.
But okay, so you've got all this text now.
Right.
How do you make it chatbot friendly?
Right. So that's where the chunking and parsing comes in.
Okay.
It's basically taking that huge wall of text and breaking it down into these like
Okay.
bite-sized pieces that the chatbot can actually understand and use.
Got it.
It's like, imagine turning a dense textbook into a stack of flashcards.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all fits together.
Yeah.
You crawl the website, you get the data,
Right.
you chunk it up into these pieces,
Yeah, okay.
and then what's next?
So then you've got to teach the chatbot how to use this information.
Right.
And that's where the knowledge base comes into play.
Okay,
It's essentially this like super organized library
got it.
where every chunk of information is, categorized
Right.
and indexed. Think of it like the chatbot's brain, right?
Okay.
It's where it can quickly find the right answer to a specific question.
So it's not just about, like, feeding the chatbot raw data.
No.
It's about structuring that data
Yeah,
in a
indeed.
way that makes sense for this purpose.
100%, yeah.
So how do we actually connect this knowledge base to the chatbot application?
So the user guide, it makes this sound super easy.
Okay.
You basically drag and drop the knowledge base component
Okay.
into your chat agent app.
Really? Drag and drop.
Pretty much.
That's surprisingly straightforward.
Right. So let's say this airline also has, a separate workflow app
Okay.
they use for handling customer requests.
Mm-hmm.
Could they use that same knowledge base there too?
Absolutely. You can add that same knowledge base component to a bunch of different applications.
Okay.
So you have consistency across
Yeah.
your whole customer interaction system. So whether the customer is talking to the chatbot
Right.
or interacting with a different app,
Exactly.
they're getting the same accurate information.
Exactly.
So it really is like the heart of the operation then,
It is.
this knowledge base.
Yeah.
Now, what happens if those airline policies change?
Okay.
Do you have to rebuild the whole knowledge base from scratch?
Nope, not at all. The user guide talks about this synchronize function.
Okay.
So you can update the knowledge base
That-
whenever those web pages change.
So you're not starting over.
No.
You're just keeping things up to date.
Exactly.
That's huge.
right. Saves a ton of time.
Yeah, a massive time saver.
Yeah.
And it makes sure the chatbot's always giving out the most accurate information.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this all makes sense from like a technical standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
but let's talk business for a second, right?
Okay, I like it.
You're pitching this solution to the airline executives.
Yeah.
What are those like key benefits that they would actually care about?
So think about their current situation, right?
Yeah.
Customers are probably digging through like endless FAQs.
Yeah.
They're getting frustrated.
Yeah.
Their call centers are probably swamped. This chatbot solution, instant answers, accurate answers, 24/7.
Yeah.
That means happier customers,
Oh.
less strain on their call centers.
Yeah.
And you're probably talking about some major cost savings over time.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's not just about the tech. It's about improving the customer experience and streamlining their operations.
100%.
But this is just for policy questions, right?
Well, yeah, for now.
Okay.
But could they expand it to other areas later on?
Okay, so where else could they go with this?
Imagine using it for baggage information,
Okay.
flight status updates, even personalized recommendations
Oh, wow.
based on a customer's travel history. The possibilities are like pretty huge once you start thinking about all the different data sources you could bring in.
So you're going from a simple policy chatbot
Right.
to basically a comprehensive travel assistant.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, so I think we've covered the basics of building this chatbot. But let's dive a little deeper into some of the more advanced features here.
Right.
The user guide mentions this thing called fine-tuning
Okay.
in relation to the knowledge-based models.
Right.
What exactly does that involve?
So fine-tuning is kind of like coaching the chatbot
Okay.
to speak the airline's language.
Got it.
You're adjusting specific parameters during training,
Okay.
and that helps the model understand the nuances
Okay.
of the airline's policies
Uh-huh.
and how customers talk about things.
So it's not just a matter of throwing data at the chatbot.
No.
It's about
Right.
shaping its understanding.
Yeah, you got to shape it.
Making it truly helpful.
Exactly.
That's an important distinction.
It is.
But what if the airline's website is like a total mess?
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What if the information you're giving the chatbot is like
Yeah.
poorly organized or inconsistent?
Yeah, that can definitely be a challenge.
Right.
If your source data is messy, it's going to affect the chatbot's accuracy.
Right.
But even in those cases,
Right.
SageMaker Unified Studio has tools for data cleaning
Right.
and pre-processing.
Okay.
It's not magic, but it can help get that data into shape before it gets to the chatbot.
That's reassuring.
Right.
Because even with, a less than perfect website,
Yeah,
you can still build a pretty good solution.
for sure.
But let's be realistic here for a second.
Okay.
No system is perfect.
No.
What are some potential pitfalls or challenges that someone building this chatbot might run into?
One challenge is making sure the chatbot's responses sound natural and engaging. You don't want it to sound like a robot reading a script.
Right.
You got to think about the chatbot's personality, its tone of voice. You want it to match the airline's brand and connect with their customers.
So there's a creative element to this as well?
Yeah, totally.
It's almost like you're writing dialogue for a character.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, so let's say you've got this team of, talented writers and developers. What other roadblocks might they hit?
Well, a lot of people overlook testing and iteration.
Okay.
You can't just build a chatbot and let it loose.
Right.
It's an ongoing process.
Okay.
You got to monitor performance, get feedback from users, and make adjustments as you go.
Got it.
The guide even talks about using Amazon A/B testing to compare different versions of the chatbot and see which one works best.
So it's like you've got this chatbot lab
Exactly.
where you can experiment with different approaches and see what clicks with customers.
Totally.
But this is starting to sound like a full-time job.
It can be, yeah.
Especially for, a big airline.
Especially for a large-scale deployment.
Right.
But the payoff can be huge. I mean, a well-designed chatbot can completely transform how an airline interacts with its customers.
Right.
And that can lead to more loyalty, higher satisfaction, and ultimately more revenue.
So before you even start building this chatbot, you've really got to understand the data.
100%.
How it's structured.
Right.
What's missing.
Yeah.
How customers might ask questions.
You got to think like your customers.
Right.
This is what's called knowledge engineering.
Knowledge engineering. Yeah. It sounds like a mix of data analysis and linguistic detective work.
A little bit, yeah.
Trying to figure out how people communicate and then translate that into something the chatbot can actually use.
That's the key.
Okay.
And it's an ongoing thing, too.
Right.
AI is always changing, so you got to stay curious, explore new possibilities, and keep iterating your approach.
So it's It's a journey.
It is.
But with platforms like SageMaker Unified Studio, that journey becomes a little bit easier to manage.
A lot easier.
All right, so you've given us a lot to think about here.
Yeah, hopefully.
Well, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to explore something else the guide mentions.
All right.
These flow apps.
Oh.
What exactly are those?
Okay, so flow apps, they're essentially like visual workflows that you can design for your chatbot.
Okay.
They let you chain together different actions and responses.
Right.
And that creates a more interactive and dynamic experience for your users.
So instead of just giving like static answers, the chatbot can actually guide users through a process or a task.
Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah.
Let's stick with our airline example here.
Okay.
How could you use a flow app to make that chatbot even better?
Okay, imagine a customer asks the chatbot, "Can I change my flight?"
Okay, yeah.
Instead of just giving them a link to the website.
Right.
The chatbot, powered by this flow app, could actually guide the customer through that whole process step by step.
Got it.
Right there in the chat.
I'm picturing this now.
Yeah.
So the chatbot asks for their confirmation number.
Right.
Checks their flight details. And then shows them all the options for changing their flight.
Exactly.
Right there in the chat.
Yep.
Wow.
And it could even handle things like seat selection, meal preferences, baggage upgrades.
Okay.
All without the customer ever leaving the chat window.
That's incredible. It's like having their own little personal travel agent.
Exactly.
Right there in the chat.
That's the idea.
So these flow apps, they really add a whole new level of interactivity and convenience.
Absolutely.
But what about building these things? Is that something like a non-technical person could do?
So the user guide really emphasizes the visual aspect of the flow app builder.
Okay.
It's designed to be really intuitive, user-friendly, even if you're not a coding expert.
Got it.
You can drag and drop different components, connect them in a sequence, define the actions and responses for each step.
So it's kind of like creating a flow chart then.
Yeah, it's very visual. You're mapping out the steps in the process.
Got it. But before we get too carried away with all these, cool features, let's talk about security for a minute.
Okay. Yeah, that's important.
We're dealing with some sensitive information here.
Right.
Airline policies, customer data. How does SageMaker Unified Studio handle all of that?
So security is built into the platform from the very beginning. The guide talks about data protection measures, like encryption, both during transmission and when the data is being stored.
Got it.
So like having this super secure vault for your information.
So even if someone, somehow managed to hack into the system, the data would be...
It would be useless to them.
Okay.
They wouldn't be able to read it.
That's good to know.
Right.
But what about controlling access to the system itself?
Okay, yeah.
How do you make sure that only the right people can manage the chatbot and the knowledge base?
So SageMaker Unified Studio, it works directly with AWS's Identity and Access Management System, or IAM.
Right.
And that gives you really fine-grained control over who can access what. So you can set up different roles, different permissions, and that makes sure that only authorized people can view, edit, or manage that sensitive information.
It's like having different levels of security clearance.
Yeah, exactly.
Within the airline itself.
Yes.
You don't want everyone to have access to everything.
Exactly.
Now, the guide also mentions something called domain units.
Oh, yeah.
What are those?
So think of domain units as separate compartments within your SageMaker Unified Studio environment.
Okay.
So you could have one for developers, one for data scientists, one for business analysts.
Got it.
Each domain unit has its own permissions and access controls.
Okay.
And that just makes security and data isolation even stronger.
So it's kind of like having different departments.
Yeah, similar to that.
Within the airline, each with their own, security protocols.
Exactly.
That level of control seems pretty essential.
It is.
Especially when you're dealing with customer data.
Yeah.
And, all that proprietary airline information.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But security is only one piece of the puzzle, right?
Right.
What about performance?
Okay.
We're talking about a chatbot that needs to be able to handle potentially thousands of customer interactions all at the same time.
Especially during busy travel time.
Exactly. Like, can it keep up?
So SageMaker Unified Studio.
Yeah.
It's built for scale and resilience.
Okay.
The guide mentions that it can actually adjust its resources automatically based on demand.
Right.
So it can handle those peak travel seasons without crashing or slowing down.
So it's like a chatbot that can, flex its muscles when it needs to.
Exactly.
But also knows how to, like, conserve energy.
Yeah, exactly.
When things are a little bit quieter.
It's very efficient.
That's pretty smart.
Yeah.
So we've covered security, scalability, ease of use. Is there anything else that, someone who's thinking about building a chatbot should keep in mind?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the key takeaways from the guide is to really understand your data before you even start building the chatbot. It's not just about grabbing all the text from those web pages.
Right.
It's about analyzing it.
Okay.
Figuring out the key entities, the relationships, understanding how customers might ask questions.
Okay.
This process, they call it knowledge engineering.
Okay.
And it's super important for building a chatbot that can actually answer those questions accurately and efficiently.
So it's like a mix of data analysis and linguistic detective work.
It is a bit like that.
Right. You're trying to figure out how people communicate and translate that into something that the chatbot can understand.
That's the key.
Okay.
And it's an ongoing process, too. I mean, the field of AI, it's always evolving.
Right.
So you got to stay curious, explore those new possibilities, and keep iterating your approach.
All right. So with platforms like SageMaker Unified Studio, that journey, like we said,
it becomes a lot more manageable. You've got the tools.
It's more manageable.
Yeah.
But it's still a journey.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
But before we move on, I want to circle back to the guide for a second.
All right.
It mentions that SageMaker Unified Studio can connect to these external databases like MySQL and Google BigQuery.
Right.
What does that mean for our airline chatbot?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Imagine connecting the chatbot to the airline's reservation system.
Okay.
Their customer database, even external data sources.
Like what?
Like weather forecasts or real-time flight information.
Wow.
Yeah.
So instead of just answering policy questions, the chatbot could actually provide personalized flight updates, maybe alert customers about potential delay.
Yeah, proactively.
Wow.
Even suggest alternate travel arrangements based on, real-time conditions.
So we're going from a simple policy chatbot to like this dynamic,
it becomes more powerful,
intelligent assistant.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's the potential.
That's really impressive.
Yeah.
Okay, so this deep dive it's been really insightful.
Good.
We've covered crawling websites, building knowledge bases, creating those interactive flow apps, connecting to all these external data sources.
We've covered a lot.
It's clear that SageMaker Unified Studio offers like a really comprehensive toolkit for anyone who's looking to use conversational AI.
100%.
So for all of you listening out there, if you're intrigued by the possibilities of conversational AI, I encourage you to check out the SageMaker Unified Studio User Guide.
Yeah.
Experiment with its features.
See what you can build.
And see what you can create.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe you'll revolutionize the way your business interacts with its customers.
Absolutely.
That's a great point.
So don't be afraid to think big.
Yeah.
Push the boundaries. The world of conversational AI.
Yeah.
It's always changing. And with tools like SageMaker Unified Studio, the only limit is your imagination.
That's a fantastic note to end on. Until next time.
Yeah.
Keep learning, keep experimenting.
We're driving deep.
And keep diving deep.
Absolutely.